Welcome to the How to Scale Commercial Real Estate Show. Whether you are an active or passive investor, we'll teach you how to scale your real estate investing business into something big.
Hey, Dan, welcome to the show.
Glad to be here, Sam. Looking forward to sharing with your audience and trying to provide some golden nuggets throughout.
Absolutely. Absolutely. You have really had, I don't want to use the word explosive, but you have made consistent strides, I would say, in the last 3 to 4 years in your business. And I'm excited to unpack that. Same questions I ask everybody who comes on. If you can give us a brief overview of where you started to where you are now and how you got there, we'd love to hear that.
Sure. So just kind of a brief overview and background of kind of where I've come from. I'm a chiropractor by trade. While I was in chiropractic school, I started a business that allowed me to kind of pay my way through chiropractic college, as well as start my very first clinic when I got out on my own. And so it was, I was able to start that debt free. And fast forward to today, I actually don't even do chiropractic anymore. I have 4 non-surgical orthopedic medical clinics that I own. And I won't say that I run them, but I have a good team that's behind me that runs them. I have a good CEO in place, and I haven't actually stepped foot in those clinics in just over 3 years, which has been great. And those clinics, though, obviously cash flow very nicely, being debt-free clinics, and they cash flow nicely. So caused another problem, which is taxes. And so to be able to reduce my taxable liability, I decided to go into the real estate side of things. And instead of starting out small, I wanted to start out on a large scale. And so started to do some partnering with some other groups to be able to do some large apartment syndications, and did our very first acquisition, which was an $8.9 million acquisition and 130 units. And fast forward to today, we just closed our largest deal to date. We've done a couple of $50 million projects close around those numbers. We did a $57.6 million deal last year and raised $21.49 million for that one. And the numbers from last year were not where we wanted them to be. So our goal was a little bit higher, but we did end up closing $156 million in acquisitions and raised $61 million from our investors.
Wow. And what was the first year? You said your first acquisition was 130 units?
Yep. That was about 3 or 4 years ago.
Wow. So what's your total assets under management now?
Just over 380 million.
Good for you guys. I mean, yep. You're the guy I want to have on this show because you have scaled and you figured out how to scale. Can you give us some ideas on things, lessons that you've learned, things you've done right and things maybe that you've done wrong in this, rapid growth?
Sure. So I think one of the things that I did in the very beginning that really helped catapult us is, instead of trying to dabble and start in the kind of the small multifamily, or even the kind of the small single family, or even just like the 2, 3, and 4 unit single family, if you will, or multifamily residential, is I didn't even go after that at all. I already done a lot of things on a big level. I didn't really want to start small. Didn't feel like there was a lot of scale there at all. There's just too much work involved and not enough skin and return on the back end. And so being able to scale allowed me to, one of the things I had to do was hire a mentor. And when I was looking for a mentor, I was looking for somebody who was already where I wanted to be and was still active in the space. So I didn't want somebody who had done it 20, 30 years ago and who was teaching me how to do it now. Because as you know, things change quite a bit, even just year over year. Right. I wanted to hire a mentor that was already still in the trenches and had already achieved a level of success that I was attaining to, and wanted to be able to have direct access to that coach, that mentor, instead of trying to do some sort of coaching or mentoring program through one of their students, which is where a lot of these programs go now. Is you don't really even get access to the main guru. You get access to one of the people they taught. And so I wanted to find somebody that I had direct access to them and their phone number. And I was willing to pay whatever I needed to pay to be able to get that kind of an access. And it has definitely, truly paid off to the point where we are right now.
Right. No, that's fascinating. That's fascinating you say that, because there are a lot of, and not that there's one right way for everyone, but there are a lot of programs where you buy the program, but you're not even maybe necessarily talking to the person you want to talk to. You're talking to somebody else.
Right. So and usually those programs are a little bit cheaper. So they're designed for maybe somebody who can't afford afford to pay twice the cost or three times the cost to get access to the main guy. But for me, I felt like it was worth it to us to be able to get access to the main guy or gal or whoever it was we were going to hire to be able to make sure that we could achieve the level of success that we wanted to in the time frame that we wanted to achieve it.
Right. No, that's awesome. That's awesome. And you had, so at this point though, your other non-surgical orthopedic clinics were all up and running. Those were functioning businesses. You already had a background in really extracting yourself from day-to-day operations.
Correct.
What are some things that you've done in your current business, or what are some things you are working on even maybe now to get yourself maybe out of the driver's seat?
Sure. So, the name of our group is passiveinvesting.com. That's the name of the group itself. And one of the things that we have three partners in our group. It's myself, Danny, and Brandon, Danny Randazzo and Brandon Abbott. And one of the things we talked about in the very beginning as we were formulating our group, passiveinvesting.com, is we wanted to make sure that we could eventually build this business to a point where we were passiveinvesting.com partners. And the only way for us to be able to do that is to be able to structure it where we were not living off of, as partners, the asset management fees. I know there's several operators as they're getting started. That's how they, quit their job or be able to afford to put food on the table, is they have these asset management fees that help to pay for some of those expenses. And all three of us were already well financially backed, and we didn't really need those asset management fees to put food on our table. That's not why we were doing what we were doing. And so we made a commitment that we were not going to touch those fees. And so as we acquire more properties, our goal has been to build out a good, solid foundational team to be able to monitor and keep track of the assets that we're acquiring within the portfolio so that we don't have to be beholden to this new business that has been created.
Right. That's interesting. So who are some of the first hires? Were they virtual assistants? Were they people in-house, or what did that look like as you guys grew this out? Let's say you guys had your first deal under or you own your first deal, your first few deals. Like who was the first team member you brought on?
Sure. So the very first one was an investor relations person, because that person is very vital when it comes to this process. We already had one of our partners who was focused on acquisitions. He's still right now our director of acquisitions. And so he was focused on the lead generation from getting new deals, but then we needed somebody to be able to help with all the investors that were coming in. So right now off of our website, we have anywhere between, on a low month, 70 or 80 new investor leads come through our website, and then on a really good month we'll have 170, 180 new investor leads that are coming through. And so that's a lot of work to go through and actually onboard that many investors. And so in the beginning, obviously, it wasn't that many. We were having maybe 5 or 10 a month that were coming in, but we knew that as we continue to build out our platform, that we would continue to be able to achieve more and more investor leads that are coming in, especially from investors that are being referred by other investors. We have a really good, solid investor base. We have just under 1,000 active investors in our acquisitions, and we did an analysis on one of our most recent acquisitions that we closed on in December of 2020. We have a 62% reinvestment rate. So investors that have invested with us before, that have actually now invested with us again on another acquisition.
Wow. And that wouldn't even necessarily include investors that wouldn't include those that want to reinvest. That includes only those that have reinvested.
Correct.
Because maybe they don't have the dry powder at the time to get back in, but they do want to, so it might even be higher than that.
Correct.
So that's fascinating. Talk to me about your partners. Like one of the keys that I keep hearing over and over with everyone I interview is that partners obviously are critical to growth and to success. So talk about how you selected the partners. How was that partnership formed? What did that look like for you?
Well, most partnerships, if you haven't heard about this yet, fail.
Correct.
So they are very critical for success, but it's also not necessarily the partners that are critical. It's the selection of the proper partners that is the most critical aspect, because you have to find somebody. And this is so counterintuitive to what we think about, but you have to try to find somebody that does not do or like what you like to do. And otherwise, because a lot of times as humans, we want to find other people that are like us, right? So If you like to do underwriting, Sam, and I like to do underwriting, then we're going to get together because we love to talk about and do underwriting together. But that's the wrong type of partner that you want to have. You can still be friends with that person, but don't partner with them. You need to partner with somebody who has a complementary skill set that you don't like doing a certain thing, and then they can actually fill that role. And you have very defined and clear roles and responsibilities. And so my role in the company is primarily with the investor relations and marketing, and then the overall strategic objectives and kind of vision of the actual business itself. And then Danny Randazzo on our team, he actually was a former top financial analyst for a large international consulting firm called Deloitte. And so he does all of our financial due diligence, our financial underwriting, works with the attorneys and the lenders, and also heads up our asset management division. And then our third partner, Brandon Abbott, his background is in construction management. And he also was an independent insurance adjuster for some of the large insurance carriers across the country before he joined us. And so his background fits very well for what he does, which is the acquisitions, which is important because he goes and tours the properties, and he does what we call our pre-LOI inspections to make sure that the properties are in good working order before he even submit an offer on the property. And then he also works very closely with the property management companies to be able to set the budgets when it comes to the renovation costs.
Right. No, that's fascinating. And did all these line up all at once, or was it one the next? And then, how did your partnership end up getting formed?
It was actually in a matter of a few months. So I wasn't actually technically looking for somebody at the time. And that's usually how most of my successful partnerships come about, is when I'm not even looking for them, and the Lord just kind of lays them in your lap, right?
Right.
And so actually Brandon Abbott on my team, he actually goes to our church, and we took a trip with our wives up to New York City in the very beginning. And we just started talking about what I was doing with the real estate side of things and acquiring apartments. And he was really interested. And he came about a month after that trip. He came up to me and he's like, "I want to join your group. I want to be part of this company that you're creating." And I was like, at the time I said, "Well, I'm not going to pay you anything. So if you want to be a partner, then come along for the ride." Right. And,
right.
And so he burned the bridges, quit his job, and we started working for us full time. And we haven't turned back since. And then literally about a month later after he joined us, my mentor at the time, who's still my mentor today, he actually connected me with another one of his mentees. And he actually lives in Charleston, Danny Randazzo, and I live up here in Columbia, South Carolina, so not too far away. And I have a skill set that he knew that was complementary to his. And Danny called me up one day and he's like, "Hey, would you be interested in partnering?" And I said, "As long as we can bring Brandon along, let's do it." And it was perfect because we had these three, kind of legs of the stool, if you will, that work really well as far as the balance of our roles and responsibilities within the partnership.
That's fantastic. Talk to us a little bit about what marketing looks like for you. So I know, you said you've got 70 to 100 roughly investors a month coming to your website, sometimes up, north of 150 to 200. How did you build the brand?
Well, I don't know if we have actually enough time in this episode to be able to go through all of that in a lot of detail, but I'll tell you about my philosophy when it comes to building a brand and actually marketing.
Yeah.
So I took a trip years ago to Sanibel Island, Florida. And if anybody has not been there yet, you must go. It's a beautiful area right outside of Fort Myers. And my wife and I were there. We left our children at home. I have 4 children right now, ages from 10 to 3. And 3 girls and a boy. So life is definitely, busy here, but we took a little trip out there to Sanibel Island, and we were sitting down on the back porch of this condo that we had rented. And this condo was right on the bay. So you could literally just jump in from the balcony into the ocean if we wanted to. But there were fishermen that were coming across the bay every single morning. And they would come out there with their one rod, they would throw it out there, and they would try to catch some fish, and they couldn't catch it. And so they'd go over here and they'd go over there, and they couldn't, catch any fish. And I'm sitting there scratching my head going, I don't know what's going on. Maybe they don't know that there's no fish over here, right?
Sure.
Maybe they need to go fish somewhere else. I think most of the people were thinking that too, that they just were going to go somewhere else and fish, because they'd sit there for like 30, 45 minutes, get frustrated, and then leave. And then a few days later, there was a gentleman that came in with a wheelbarrow full of all the fishing gear, like, the bait and the tackle, and like 12 fishing rods, and just carrying it down. And he sat right there on a bench right in front of the bay. He didn't even go on the deck itself. So it was a little dock area that you go to fish. He set it up beside the dock, and his wife was right behind him with her face in a book, reading a book. And she went and sat on the bench just to spend some time with him while he wanted to go out there and go fishing. And what he started to do is he started to put out his fishing rods. He put out one rod, put out the next rod, the next rod. By the time he got the last rod put out, guess what started to happen? One of the other rods started to bite.
Right.
And so he'd go over there and pick out the fish and reel it in. And all of a sudden, another one would bite and another one would bite. And he started to recruit his wife. Hey, dear, I need you to come help me. I got too many of these things coming in. Right. And a light bulb moment went off in my head. And I was like, that's exactly the way you need to approach marketing. Because so many times, so many business owners try to just do one thing, right? They try to find this like magic bullet, this silver bullet that's going to produce so many different leads for them. And it just does not exist. And so I believe in what's called a multimodal approach to marketing, whether it be for marketing to my medical clinics or marketing for investor leads or whatever type of marketing you're doing. There has never been one thing that has brought in a ton of leads for me. Right. It's always been a multimodal approach where multiple things were going on at the same time, where 1 month, this thing did really well. The next month, it didn't do really well, but I have 10 other things that are working for me, bringing in leads, and it creates a consistency in that lead flow when you're doing your marketing.
Right. No, I love that. I love that. Let's jump into the final four. You've got more to share. I could come back and do 6 more episodes with you, I'm sure. But let's jump into the final four, unfortunately, because I want to really carry this conversation on. Sorry, sure. Guys. We got to hang up the cleats. But here, the final 4 questions are this. One piece of advice to an aspiring investor. What would your one piece be?
Hire a mentor and don't wait to do it. Hire them as soon as you can.
That's excellent. What's one thing you're currently doing to stay on top of your game?
Well, one of the things that I always subscribe to are a lot of the market reports when it comes to multifamily. So as we continue to grow and expand into the various markets, you have to make sure you're staying up on top of that data. And so that's one of the things that I would highly recommend is that as you get into any type of real estate space, make sure you're subscribing to various national, regional, and then also state and local specific reports as it relates to the demographics, but also some of the trends that are happening in the market.
Gotcha. That's fantastic. When it comes to giving back, what's one thing you're doing to make the world a better place?
My wife and I started a nonprofit foundation it was been in 2019 called the Fortify Foundation. You can find out more information by going to fortifyfoundation.com and find out more information about that group. But it's a group that actually comes alongside small to mid-sized Christian private schools to help them build out a foundation and an endowment to be able to create some sustainability in their organization.
That's awesome. That's awesome. And Dana, for listeners want to get in touch with you, how do we do that?
So there's 2 ways you can do that. So you can go to our website, passiveinvesting.com. In the top right-hand corner of that page, there's a button there that says join the Passive Investor Club. Love to have you join us and have a conversation with you. And then, of course, if you want to join me on LinkedIn, you can just go to linkwithdan.com, and that'll bring you straight over to my LinkedIn profile so you can connect with me there.
Awesome. Dan, thanks so much for your time. Certainly appreciate it.